a little bit of a rant about gay male church ladies. You people are awful. And I kind of want to say that you're my least favorite people in the world, but no, that's reserved for the intersectional communist politician people that are totally just capitalists and are actually semi wealthy and they're lawyers and stuff. Those are the worst. I can't stand those people. Hey, it's Prince of Queens, and apparently on the weekends I just rant unscripted. So here it goes. I am so irritated right now with gay male church ladies. A lot of it came as a result of this controversy having to do with the electronic musician Pogo, who I think is actually cool and funny and makes good music, and I made a video defending him. And there's like all these gay guys, not just in my comments. Apparently, this is an actual widespread outrage in the gay male community where they're just acting like South Park, Kyle's mom. You know, what? Like, he made a video in 2016. And it was funny. Like, I was legitimately chuckling because it was just so absurd. And it was so obviously a joke to me, you know. This is a guy who's an electronic musician, and he makes the gayest electronic music. It's so incredibly gay. Like, go to Pogo's channel. He has about 775,000 subscribers. Lots and lots of subscribers. And he remixes stuff with samples from, like, he has one with Winnie the Pooh. He has one with Star Trek. He has one from a lot from Disney movies. And it's just like bubbly, fun electronic music. It's so incredibly gay. It's like the gayest music ever. He knows that he has gay audience members. He has lots of gay friends. And he called his channel Fagatron. And according to him, it's because he was just generally kind of being edgy. And I guess it was an old channel of his. And, you know, he's actually pretty young. He's not even 30. And he's been in the business for a while. And so a lot of people asked him, why did he call his channel Fagatron? So he decided to kind of troll people and just say the worst possible thing that he possibly could. And say it with a straight face in a video, which is funny. You know, this sounds so stupid and pretentious, but as a theater maker, it's way funnier if he goes on screen and says something that he completely doesn't mean at all. Something that's the exact opposite of the truth. And says it with a straight face, like something completely horrible. Like that he hates gay men, and that's why he called his channel Fagatron, which doesn't make any sense. That doesn't make... Wait, who would do that? Oh, yeah, so I really hate Islam, so I'm calling my channel the Quran. Because reasons. Like, what? No, that doesn't... Like, I really hate Islam, so I'm gonna call my channel the Quran, and I'm gonna read passages from the Quran on my channel because I hate Islam so much. Because that's basically what he did with his music. Like, his music is incredibly gay. He called his channel Fagatron. So when he comes out and he says that he called it that because he hates gay men and that he applauded the Orlando massacre, there's no possible way on planet Earth that he meant it. And I mean, I'm explaining the obvious to my audience. But the thing is, there's gay guys who believed him, and that now there's this smear campaign against him. They're smearing him and saying that he's this big homophobe. I think it's probably political because he works with Disney. Disney is, the same company that owns ABC. ABC just fired Roseanne. So it would seem to me that maybe there's a purge going on with that company, and they're trying to get rid of their artists and entertainers that have dissenting political opinions so that they can completely control the narrative to a certain degree. You know, apparently Deadpool 2 is kind of SJW or whatever people are saying. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't know what's really going on with that whole situation. But what's really, really funny is that Pogo made a video explaining himself. And he's like, God, this is kind of silly that you guys don't get it. Like, it's kind of weird that I have to actually explain myself. Like, he doesn't have a groveling apology or anything. He doesn't really apologize. He just explains himself. And it just seems more obvious than it could possibly seem to me that, you know, what I already thought is the case. But I'm looking through social media and there's dozens and dozens of gay guys who are just like, burn him at the stake. And they're like, look at him backpedal. Now he's backpedaling. And I'm like, backpedaling? He doesn't have to backpedal. He didn't do anything wrong. And they're like, no, he's just backpedaling. And it's like, so you literally want to live in a world where this guy who is, who lived amongst your ranks, who is playing music at your nightclubs that you were dancing to, you enjoyed this guy's music and you probably thought he seemed cool if you listened to him in an interview. You liked this guy, and then you found out that he allegedly hates you and wished that you would get shot at a nightclub like Orlando. You found that out, and that was upsetting. And if you legitimately believed it, sure, I can understand why that would be upsetting, because it would be upsetting if you were that gullible. I'm not, but I guess some people are. That would be upsetting. But then when he comes out and he explains himself, and he's obviously joking, and he explains, no, you guys, I was just being an edgelord. Guys are still wanting to believe that that's not true, and that he actually does want them to get shot at a nightclub. Like, they want that. And it's just like, what the actual, where did they get to that point? And it brings up a question in my mind that has recently been asked of me on social media, which I really, really hate. This is one of the worst. I should make another list of things that people on the left, or feminists, or SJWs, or whatever you want to call them, the people that I interact with on Facebook in my quote unquote real life friends that I haven't hung out with in like 3 years, the type of things that these people say. One of the things that they say, and it's common, and I brought this up in videos in the past, is that they'll ask, who hurt you? When you make sense in a political discussion. Like, if somebody talks about the wage gap and you're like, the wage gap is not actually the average amount of money paid. It's a grand total of, if you do Shoe on Head's little button thing and you explain the wage gap, they'll seriously say, who hurt you? And, it's obviously a passive-aggressive insult, and they believe that nobody knows that they're insulting people when they do passive-aggressive insults, because they have been conditioned to believe that being as rude as they want to people that disagree with things that they are saying is completely 100% acceptable. They do that all the time. These type of gay guys will say that type of thing. But the mess up thing is that I'm looking at this and I'm legitimately thinking to myself that these guys are hurt. These are damaged people. And I almost kind of want, but I'm not their therapist, so I'm not gonna, but I kind of want to ask them who hurt them. Like, who damaged them? Who was the guy? Like, was there some bully in high school that beat them up? Maybe they briefly dated a closet case in high school. Like, they hooked up with some guy, and then the guy decided to freak out and throw them under the bus and tell everybody that he was gay and deny all involvement, even though he had hooked up with him. Like, wouldn't that suck? Like, wouldn't, if you were in high school and you hooked up with a guy for the first time and you wanted to go steady with him and, come out together, and he was like, gross, dude, I'm not gay like you, except for he was. And then he told the whole school that you were gay. Like, that would be really, really bad. And you would have a big trust violation. That would, you would always maybe in the back of your mind suspect that people that you would grow fond of as a gay male would maybe betray you. And maybe they feel like this with Pogo. I don't know. I don't know. That's what it just seems like to me. But God, these guys are like church ladies. And I've been talking about this for many years, like well before I even started, being what people would call an anti-SJW or whatever. Like many years before, like I was probably talking about this in early this decade, how there's gay guys in San Francisco, because I was living in San Francisco, and my attitude when I moved there was that I had lived in New York City, and despite having a very high gay population in New York, you definitely can face discrimination for being a gay male in New York pretty easily. Like, if you go to the wrong areas and you act too gay, people will make fun of you or worse. And you can avoid that. That's fine. But San Francisco, not so much. San Francisco is basically one big gay neighborhood. Like, I think that in the entire 7 years that I was in San Francisco, the only time that I remember having somebody call me or one of my friends a faggot was in an intersection. This cab driver wouldn't stop at the stop sign and was kept rolling towards us, and my friend was looking in the other direction, and he's kind of ghetto. Like, he grew up in the projects. He was somebody that I used to produce music for. He was a rapper, and he's this really gay, crazy drag queen rapper guy. And my friend was talking to me, and he wasn't looking, and then the car almost sort of bumped into us because he wasn't stopping, even though it was a stop sign. And so my friend started freaking out, and he was like, "Man, you need to stop. This is a stop sign, motherfucker." And then the cab driver yelled, "Oh, shut the fuck up, you fucking faggot." And then my friend was like, "You're a faggot, bitch. Get out the car. I'll whoop your ass." And it was actually really quite funny. That was the only time I ever remember being called a faggot. And he wasn't actually even talking to me. He was talking to my friend. But my attitude in San Francisco, I knew moving down there that it wasn't going to be anything like New York, that it was perfectly accepted, and it was almost standard to be a gay male in San Francisco, at least 2007 through 2015. There were so many gay guys everywhere. If anybody was homophobic in San Francisco, they were socially ostracized because, like, they had a gay mayor. It would be absurd to be anti-gay in San Francisco. And yet still, there were still all these guys who were actively looking for homophobia in places. And it was like, if they couldn't find it, there was something incomplete about them. Like, they had based a major portion of their identity fighting against homophobia. And I certainly understand that to a certain degree. I do. Like, I understand what it's like to get in a negative feedback loop of being annoyed at a certain thing and then finding it everywhere. I mean, I've certainly done that a little bit too much with feminism and the left, and politicizing everything about the left to the point where I'm seeing things that aren't necessarily intended. I realized that when I went to the Folklife Festival in Seattle, which is super, super far lefty. Everything there is far lefty, but it wasn't actually political. Like, nobody was actually really talking about politics. There was 2 mentions of how they don't like. There was one mention of how they don't like what's going on in the White House, but that was literally all they said. Like, I think they said, this song is about things that are crappy, like everything that's in the White House. Like, that was it. And then the other one, they said something about resistance, and I think that they were referencing the resistance, but that's all they said. Like, so I don't even really know for sure. So that being said, I know about the feeling of overly fixating on certain negativity and finding it in places that maybe it doesn't exist. But with these gay guys, it's weird. And I really, really, really do think that it has to do ultimately, as a conclusion, with some sort of industry that has been built around homophobic outrage. Because if you're a gay blogger or media persona, especially in the current year, there's very, very, very few things that you're allowed to write about because everything has been taken over by politics. So you are allowed to write about sexy men. You're allowed to write about some arts and culture, but really, for the most part, it's supposed to be the intersectional stuff. Like, if it's just a normal, talented gay male that's white that does stuff, your publisher's probably not really that interested. He'd really prefer it was a black trans person in a wheelchair that was a painter, because that's way more intersectional and that sells. And but you still, if you want to write an article that has a picture of a sexy man with his shirt off, your editor will probably publish that because that'll get clicks. And then you can talk about politics directly, and one of the things that you can talk about is any form of bigotry scare. Like, anytime somebody has been accused of bigotry, and especially if it's, some celebrity has been accused of being a homophobe, then the gay blogs are all over it because they are desperate for material to write about. And they've been at that for a while, for several years, like they've been desperate for content to write about because there's so many things that they aren't allowed to write about. Like, there's so many blogs that would benefit from hiring somebody like myself, if I did want to say so myself and toot my own horn. People are interested in the type of things that I talk about. That's why I've been able to completely independently gain an audience. So if I got a signal boost from one of these big gay blogs that gets circulated, like if they published me on The Advocate, which would be an alternate reality if that actually happened, I would have all sorts of things to say, but they never would. They never would, because they're too busy, pretending that I don't exist and that gay guys like me don't exist. The Advocate will probably never say out loud that GigTow exists, and if they do, it will be a crazy smear campaign, and it'll just say all these horrible things. It will be like, it comes after the radical misogynist MGTOW movement, and it's like, well, no, not really. We don't care that much about our relationships as individuals with women. We just care about the actual community of gay men and how we find ourselves being abused by the greater alliance with the LGBTQIA++++, who wants to spend all our money that we give in donations as gay men, who are, the most high contributors to the fundraisers, but then they don't ever do anything for gay men. And in fact, they demonize gay men. That's what's, really, really going on. The Advocate would never mention GigTow. No. The Advocate will definitely accuse people of being homophobic, though. And there's certain guys who get paid to be in that system, and they've never gotten past such things, really. Or they have to talk about gay media. Somebody that is interesting, because he's not the worst. Like, he's actually semi-entertaining and can make pretty good videos sometimes if he sticks to talking about pop culture and stuff, is this guy Matt Baum. And he's pretty smart, but it's really sad what's happened to his career. I feel bad for him because he is stuck in this, I don't want to say rut, in these he's been pigeonholed. He's been pigeonholed by his editors and his own prerogative, maybe. And he only has a few things that he's allowed to write about. So he can write political articles for the regressive left. He can do that. He can write about homophobia, and he can write about gay media, which he does a lot. He talks a lot about gays in film and television, but it's really funny because he's ran out of material, and so he has to go through like shows from 15 years ago or so all the time and talks about it like it's relevant to talk about today, and it's totally not really. And it's like, so who has the finger on the pulse of the gay guys right now? Gee, I don't know. Clearly not anybody working in gay media. Like, clearly, because it's all they ever talk about is just stupid stuff that nobody really cares about, and homophobia. But because of that, there is this distinct demographic of mostly aging gay guys. It looks like, mostly guys that are well over 30, probably over 40, often in their 50s. And they legitimately believe that the world is still homophobic and hates them, and that maybe Pogo really does hate gay men, because they're out of touch. They're just out of touch. And the only thing they know about the world is these stupid gay blogs that show up on their timelines, because all of their friends are like over 40 and they just work a lot and they don't have enough time to actually interact with young people. Like, I play Overwatch literally pretty much every day. Like, if I don't play Overwatch on a certain day, I'm like, oh, I'm excited to get back to my teammates, And I can assure you, young people are, and this is a game where I'm linked up with young people all across the country at random to talk to them. And I sound super gay. Everybody can tell that I'm gay by the way that I sound. I have a totally embellished gay accent. And I've come into contact with maybe like 3 to 5 guys who make fun of me for being gay ever. And it's never been like some cool thing where the other people join in on it. It actually happened recently, and I might upload this video. There was this guy who, he was not playing well, and he advised the team to have a bad team composition. He told us to only have 1 healer, and we needed 2, and I had said that. And when I was doing my job, I was fulfilling my role all right, but we kept dying. He tried to blame me. And I was like, dude, I was the one who told you we need another healer. And he was like, well, you should have played the other healer. It was some dumb shit like that. But I was doing really good. I teleported 12 people with Symmetra. 12 on the first point. And he's trying to blame me. Okay, that's stupid. Obviously, I was doing my job. But when he realized that he didn't really have a leg to stand on, he started trying to make fun of my voice. And he was grouped up with 2 guys. Like, they were friends. And he started trying to make fun of my voice, and he was in platinum and I was in gold, and one of his friends was in the silver league and the other was in gold. And the guy who was in silver apparently really, really, really wanted to get into gold and was thinking that maybe he would. And the guy in plat was just super, super cocky. Like, I think he must have thought that he could get his friend's skill ranking up. And so he didn't want to admit that he was the one who kind of blew the game for everybody by telling them to only have 1 healer. Like, he didn't want to admit that. So I ended up doing quite well. And he was like, no, you didn't. And I was like, yeah, I did. I teleported 12 people. And then he started making fun of my voice, right? Thinking that that was a good comeback in video game banter land. But it wasn't, because I was just like, oh God, really? You're going to do this? Do you know what I do for like a job? Like, people pay me to banter and make fun of people. So if you want to go there, let's go there. And I have this recorded. I might upload it. Like, I just ripped him a new one. I was just making fun of him. And I was like, it got to the point where, he kept making fun of my voice, and he actually said that being gay was a choice. And I'm like, you sure about that? And just funny stuff like that. And then I was like, look, dude, if your friends had laughed at a single one of your jokes, maybe you'd have a leg to stand on, but your buddies aren't laughing at you. Like, they haven't said a single thing. And it was true. They didn't speak up. They didn't say, yeah, no, he's funny. He's funnier than you, or something like that. Like, that never happened. Like, it seemed to me Like, they were completely embarrassed to be on the team with this guy. And I told them that I might broadcast it on my YouTube channel. I told them, and the other guys are like, really? What's your YouTube channel? Is it Prince of Queens? And I didn't really say anything because, you know, gamers have a lot of channels, but most of them don't even have 50 subscribers. So when they look and see how many subs I have and see that I have, you know, close to 13,000, they're going to be like, oh shit, you know? So, yeah, that happened. And it was this instance of like what we would call homophobia, but it was this minority opinion. I was able to, I don't want to say turn him against his friends, but it was pretty clear that his friends were siding with me, because in groups of straight guys, if there is a conflict between one of them and some other person, they will instinctually have their friends back, and they'll join in and tell the other person to shut up if they don't like the other person. That's just how they are. But in that situation, they just didn't say anything, because if straight guys don't side with their friends, they're not going to defend the other guy. They're just not going to say anything. They're just going to pretend like nothing is happening. And that type of thing seems to be the common trend amongst young people. Like, there are some straight guys who make fun of gay guys. And I'm sure it happens when gay guys aren't around a fair amount, because gay guys are kind of silly. You know, it's pretty easy to make fun of a lot of gay guys, right? And I'm sure there's a lot of white people who totally make fun of black people when black people aren't around. But the overall trend is that at the end of the day, people don't want to be seen as homophobic or racist for the most part, right? And they certainly aren't going to like make YouTube videos where they would be serious and say that they hate gay people, and then they would have to backpedal later when people call them out. No, that's not how it is. It's that this guy, Pogo, is more in tune with the collective unconscious, the general societal, socio-political zeitgeist of the West, that he knows that the vast majority of people are not going to actually believe that he is homophobic. He knows that. I know that. But who doesn't know this? Who doesn't know that? Is these gay church ladies. And there's a lot of them. There's a lot of them around. And what's really sad about it is that they are the minority, but apparently they're the people with all the media jobs. You know, like, I just had a recent kind of like, I don't want to say falling out, because there was no actual falling out. But this guy and I guess maybe we're not friends anymore on Facebook. And he knows that I'm right. Every time I've talked to him about stuff, he knows that I'm right about the regressive leftist people, the people who, you know, call everybody racist and call everybody misogynists and all that kind of thing. Like, he knows perfectly well that they're being absurd and that I make good arguments. He knows that. But he works in media. He can't really say so. He can't say so publicly. And his friends, his stupid little friends, which granted, I don't know how many real friends he has, because he has like 5,000 friends on Facebook. So it's kind of like, maybe you just don't have any actual friends because you try to please everybody. Have you ever thought of that? Have you ever thought about that fact, dude? Have you ever thought about that? Because you clearly try to please way too many people, to the point where this guy who has 5,000 friends, who thinks he's such a nice guy, he allows for heckler's veto to exist on his timeline. If anybody doesn't understand the concept of a heckler's veto, it's that without moderation, the hecklers get to decide on the discourse. So if you are hosting a talk, right, and you don't kick out hecklers, well, then they can just decide who speaks. So if you're at a university and you just allow the students to come in with air horns and you don't escort them out with security, then you're giving them the heckler's veto. They can control who can speak at your university. And this guy, who thinks he's such a nice guy, and to be truthful, when I talk to him, he is, but he allows for a heckler's veto on his timeline because he has all of these awful, stupid little friends. And anytime I post anything that remotely makes sense on his Facebook timeline, and it can be anything, like I completely non-confrontational, just a standard opinion about something and not insulting anybody specific, just sort of saying, oh yeah, well, this is what I think. There will be somebody that's going to start crap with me. And that happens pretty much reliably. And this guy has taken, he's done this for a long time. He's taken to victim blaming me. And it's because of the fact that, he has this little 5,000 people on his Facebook friend list, and it's an echo chamber. It's all regressives. It's all corporate Democrat type people. And I'm one of the only voices of dissent on there, which is why I felt like it was important to be his friend for many reasons. Also, just because I did legitimately think that he was a nice guy. But he would victim blame me for, I would just say something that would make sense, and I would hope that maybe I would have a productive conversation, which, granted, is mostly impossible with the intersectionals and the feminists. Like, they just jump right to insults and are completely rude, and they start fights. They refuse to actually discuss what you're talking about. That's, generally what happens. And then things devolve, and then he victim blames me because it keeps happening with me. Like, I'm the guy that says something that's an idea that sparks these people to attack me, and then it devolves into an argument, and then he says, you keep getting into arguments. Which is amazing, coming from a gay guy, because do you know what that really, really reminds me of? It reminds me of when I've heard from so many gay men that this happened to them. And this didn't really happen to me, maybe once in like a summer program video making class that I took. But a lot of gay guys in the 1990s, I don't think this probably happens anymore, but in the 1990s, a lot of gay guys would get bullied at school for being gay. And they would try to go to like the vice principal about it or whatever, whoever was the disciplinary person at their school. They would try to complain, hey, I keep getting bullied for being gay. And the vice principal would say to them, well, why don't you stop acting so gay? That used to happen a lot. Like that was a common story that guys would tell when they would come out, and they would recap that. Like I would go on dates in New York City in the early 2000s, and they would tell me that story. Like, that is such a common story. And so the fact that guys are now in a position where they are victim blaming the person that's getting heat, it's like, dude, it's your Facebook timeline. I'm a nice guy. You know that I'm not starting these fights. You know that your stupid friends are coming to me to pick fights with me when I'm just trying to offer a perspective that I don't think is being commonly shared as nicely as possible. And he'll go through mental gymnastics to excuse why he's victim blaming me. Like, he'll be like, well, yeah, but I think it's because a lot of people have seen the patterns of you getting into these fights. And it's like, oh, you mean the patterns of these people being completely vicious to me every time I try to post anything ever? I mean, sure, maybe you can see me as the bad apple. Like, I get it. But it is your timeline. You have control over this. You can tell them to knock it off every time. And that is the surefire way of getting it to stop. Like, you can take that stand and say, no, it's not acceptable to just go ahead and start fights with people. The last time it happened, it was really annoying because this guy literally did say, who hurt you, to me, after I shared a completely non-whiny, it did not look in any way, shape, or form like I could have possibly been hurt. This guy was just being completely as rude as he possibly could. And then he, his version of an apology was saying, Okay, after I told my friend to tell him to stop attacking me, because my friend had agreed to stop attacking me, he said, okay, Prince, I'm sorry. I legitimately didn't mean any offense. And that wasn't good for me as an apology because he did. He definitely did. What type of question is, who hurt you after stating a political opinion that is non-whiny, non-confrontative, is just talking about a subject that my friend was posting about? There's no possible way on planet Earth that this guy wanted to know who hurt me because he was legitimately concerned. And everybody knows that. So if he's going to apologize without admitting to what he actually did, which was to try to insult me, he said, oh, I didn't mean any offense. Yes, you did. Yes, you did. You definitely did. So I'm not going to take that apology. That would be like going up to somebody on the street and saying, and punching them, and then apologizing and saying, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know that that would hurt or something. Like, it's like, you don't get to just apologize for that. You could maybe apologize for saying, oh, I'm sorry that I punched you in the face. There's this guy who looked exactly like you that, like, mugged me last week. Maybe that would kind of make sense. Okay, bad metaphor. But the reason that I'm talking about this guy now and that I'm kind of ranting about him, he's gotten into this mentality of being kind of surrounded by these gay church ladies. And he's kind of a little bit of a gay church lady himself, even though he doesn't quite realize it and he doesn't want to be. Like, if you talk to him long enough and you separate him from these types of people, you can tell that he's not like that deep down. But as he ages and as he's surrounded by that echo chamber and as the heckler's veto keeps people like me away from him, he doesn't have the gumption to stand up and say that it's not acceptable for these people to just ruthlessly attack me in every way that they can so that they can hopefully get rid of me. And eventually they did. He blocked me on Facebook because he got annoyed that I wasn't willing to take the guy's apology or something. I don't know exactly what it was. He didn't give me an explanation, but this had been going on for a long time. He told me, Prince, it would save me a lot of time and energy if I just blocked you. And everyone tells me to block you. And it's like, yeah, of course they want you to block me. That's the whole thing with them. They know that I'm winning the arguments. And he kind of knows that. He kind of does, but they're whispering in his ear. They're like, "Go to Candy Mountain, get rid of that Prince of Queens, get rid of him. It'll be better. Everything will be better. It'll be like he doesn't exist." And it's funny because like I've talked to him twice, voice to voice, over the past couple of months, for a long time, for like 6 hours one time and like 2 hours the other time. And we were talking about all of this stuff and he knows perfectly well what I'm talking about. It's not like after blocking me, he's just going to forget about me. Like I don't exist. Like that's not going to haunt him a little bit. It probably will. And I suspect that he's going to want to be my friend in a little bit. When he gets bored of all these people, he's going to come crawling back after I tried really, really hard to get through to him and tell him, dude, you should stand up to these people, these gay church ladies and these feminists who order you around. He works in media and he's terrified of upsetting certain women who power trip over him, who I guess could hurt his career because they are feminists and they have power in the media sphere that he works in. I know that about him. And I know that in my absence, he's going to think about me and he's going to think, notice how many of the things that I said just kind of end up being true. The starving piranha syndrome, the whole thing where these people will always attack each other when there's no one left to attack. So on his Facebook timeline, I got to be the convenient scapegoat for a long while. Every time he would post something and I would post, they would all get to dogpile me and feel like they had a common enemy. But when I'm gone, it's not like they're not going to fight with each other, because they will. They absolutely will. And, you know, he'll probably be attacked at some point or another, because he's actually a reasonable guy. Like, he really never says anything that's just drastically awful against white people or males or anything like that, which is why I continued to try to salvage hope that he would come around and be a pretty cool person in the end. But, you know, he proved to me that he was unwilling to have a spine and actually stick up for me, even after he sort of said that he would. And I don't think he's cool anymore. You know, like, to be perfectly honest, he would have to have a really, really good groveling apology to, not groveling, but he would have to have a really, really interesting way of phrasing things for me to want to be friends with him again. Because I'm just not interested in being around this weird gay church lady, you know, cry bully, everything's offensive type attitude, but they're doing things that are offensive and mean very frequently, and then pretending like it isn't, and then victim blaming the people that point it out. I just, if I make that clear to someone, like if I give them so much time, you know, 8 hours or so of my own time trying to talk to these people and remind them that I'm actually very reasonable and that I, you know, what I want is non-bigotry and non-discrimination. Like that is literally what I want, and I can prove it, and I can prove why I hold the views that I do. And if he agrees with me, and then he turns around and blocks me on Facebook because I'm a nuisance, I'm just thinking to myself, well, maybe he just told me what I wanted to hear. Maybe he was never cool at all. Maybe I was, and dare I say it, maybe I was one of the best things he had going for him. You know, like maybe a lot of the reason that his posts seemed semi-interesting to me was because I kept commenting on them and it kept making him think. But maybe without me, he's just going to be yet another one of these gay church ladies. Maybe without me, in 6 months, he's going to be posting articles about how somebody like Pogo is allegedly Pogo, who makes the gayest music ever and was obviously joking and has admitted he's joking. Maybe this guy that I'm talking about will be posting an article talking about how Pogo's homophobic in 6 months. And then if somebody were to say, I heard he was just joking, this guy will say, no, he was just backpedaling. And since I wasn't there to be the voice of reason, maybe this guy will just go back to being that clueless. Because it's okay for him. He's proven now that he's okay with lying to himself about his own views, because I've heard what he really thinks. He's talked to me voice to voice, just me and him, for several hours, and I know that he doesn't actually believe this crap. I know that he knows perfectly well that I'm a good guy, but he chose to block me on Facebook basically because I'm a nuisance to him. Like I was an inconvenience, a momentary inconvenience. Like, dude, grow a spine. If you're going to cut out everything in your life that's an inconvenience, you're not going to get very far in life. I don't know what little party you're at and how late you think it's going, but yeah, it's over and the cops are on the way. It's not that cool anymore to hang out with the aging gay church ladies. It's just not. But the sad thing is that when people think that they are when they get to the state when they are church ladies, it's because they've been conditioned for a long period of time to believe that they are the moral majority. They believe that everybody's on their side, and that when they get offended by something, everybody's offended by something, and that they can just rally all the troops. That's how they think. That's where that mentality comes from. And, sometimes they can, sometimes they can't, but very, very often they can't, because the moral majority tends to change every 10 years or so. And so these gay guys who are thinking that they have the moral majority, they're wrong. People just don't care about things in the same way as they used to. But they don't know it yet. They just don't know it yet. They think that they're the cool kids, and that, they can just call Pogo homophobic, and that the majority of people aren't laughing at them for being ridiculous, which they are. And I don't want to say it's sad, because I first experienced that in probably the year 2005, when I was hanging out with like Burning Man people. Shudder. I know, it's embarrassing that I used to hang out with Burning Man people. They had this gigantic set of moral rules that they would all kind of follow, and they thought that they were the cool kids and everything. And then I was like living in New York City, and I realized that nobody in New York was really like that, and that everybody thought Burning Man was the least cool thing ever. And I started to realize that Burning Man culture, like that version of hippie culture that was popular early last decade, it was going to go out of fashion completely, because everything that happens in New York fashion wise happens a few years before it happens on the West Coast. So when I moved back to Seattle in 2005, there were still a lot of Burning Man people, and I felt like I knew that they weren't cool because I was in New York, and I kind of tried to, tell them. I was like, you guys, this whole like Burning Man thing where you're wearing fake fur all the time, like walking down the street with fake fur, it's not cool. It's not going to age well. You're going to be kind of embarrassed. And they were like, oh, you're stupid. You think you're cool because you're from New York, because you lived in New York for 5 years? You think you're cool? And I'm like, I don't really know how to respond to that question. Kind of. I mean, I don't think I'm cool just because I lived in New York for 5 years, but I can assure you that living in New York for 5 years has given me an insight into fashion and trends, and I can assure you that this whole Burning Man fake fur thing is on the way out, and you're going to be really embarrassed that you're still wearing this, and, caused a lot of animosity, and I lost a lot of friends due to arguing about that kind of a thing, but that saddened me at the time. It saddened me that I couldn't get through to these people that I liked, and I wanted to kind of come with me into the new world, which, the latter part of last decade was sort of like the hipster years. It was nationally shaped very much by blogs and Vice magazine, and this sort of conglomerate of certain electronic music, certain hip hop, certain indie rock bands, and style that was nothing like the Burning Man people. I wanted everybody to kind of shift over to that style. And not a whole lot of people who were into Burning Man did. Almost nobody who had been into that stuff was able to successfully transition. But I was, and I transitioned very, very smoothly. And, actually got on a record label, and, you could call the music that I put out on the record label hipster music or something. Well, I'm looking at these gay guys who are trapped in this like gay church lady mentality, and, they're in their like late 30s or so. And I have to remember not to feel sad that they're going to just be trapped there, because it's not my problem. It's not. And if I spend too much of my time trying to like get them out of that, A, I'll fail. B, I'll waste my time. C, I'll compromise my relationships with the new crowd of people that I should be trying to discover and hang out with and spend time. You know, like all of the guys that are starting to call themselves GigTow, I'm so much more interested in talking to than I am with these church ladies that are thinking that Pogo might actually be homophobic. Like, this is absurd. So, yeah, I don't feel bad for these gay church ladies. I have no sympathy for them because I've been through that. And I know where it gets me. I can't afford to slum it trying to be a good Samaritan, helping you guys out of your sadness and your unwillingness to adapt to the current reality. If that sounds snobby to you, whatever, dude. Like, if that sounds snobby to you, whatever. I'm better than you. No, but that is legitimately my stance. So if you want to be sad, you can be sad. But I don't want to spend any more than this hour trying to convince anybody. Like, if you want to watch this and if it's convinced you to maybe not be like this, good, awesome. But man, I don't know if I'm going to continue to make my videos just because that's what I do and people watch them. You know, I'm going to defend somebody like Pogo when it's pretty obvious that people are smearing him and he was very obviously joking. Yeah, I'm going to do that. And people can watch my videos. But like, you know, there's this one guy on YouTube who has a weird love-hate relationship with me. Used to actually donate money to me on Patreon. Very, very small amount of money. Very, very small amount of money. It was basically a symbolic gesture from a YouTuber to me. But he has a tendency to do the whole like gay church lady thing. And it's a shame because he also doesn't like feminists. So he's this weird in-between of being a regressive SJW type and also understanding that there's problems with the regressive SJW types. There's a lot of gay guys who are like that, by the way. And I think that in a few years, there's not going to be so many. I think that everybody's going to be able to agree in a few years that the regressive SJW mentality is just awful. Like, that's my prediction. But I think that they're going to have to learn that lesson for themselves. I don't think that I can tell them. I think that they're going to have to learn to live it through their daily lives, where they just come into contact with these people over and over and over and over and over, and nothing good ever comes of it. Nothing good ever comes with compromising with these people. Like, when that guy insulted me on my friend's Facebook timeline, he said to me, the first thing he said, you know, I shared a political opinion about it, it wasn't even like really my political opinion. I was just saying, I basically just said what conservatives would probably say as a response to something. You know, I was like, oh, well, I imagine that conservatives would say this. And it was very brief, you know. And the guy said, who hurt you? And my friend refused to actually address the fact that this guy had insulted me. You know, I told him, like, the guy said, oh, I didn't insult you. I didn't mean any offense. And I said, don't lie to me. Yes, you did. And then the guy flipped out and started swearing at me and said, how dare you not accept my apology? And it's like, okay, well, you never wanted to apologize to begin with. Obviously, you just wanted to insult me because you flipped out to swearing at me when I called you on your lie. I was unwilling to compromise with that because I'm not going to be lied to. I'm not going to sit there and have some guy lie to me saying that he didn't insult me when everybody knows that he did. Because if you make any compromises with these people, you are allowing them to shape the dialogue and you're setting a standard that you're okay with being lied to. And when people are okay with being lied to, they often think that it's okay to lie. And then they often think that it's okay to lie to themselves, which you have to do to be one of these regressive, leftist, SJW, whatever you want to call it, intersectionals, whatever you want to call it, mainstream corporate Democrats. In order to be that, you have to lie constantly, not just to other people, but to yourself, really, if you want to truly, truly believe that you're one of the good people. Unless you're directly financially benefiting from it, which a lot of people are. A lot of people are professionals that are paid to peddle this stuff. So many people are. But even if you're not, you have to train yourself to be okay with lying constantly. And in order to break free of that, in order to quote unquote red pill yourself, you have to assert very clearly to everybody around you that you're no longer okay with being lied to. You're no longer okay with lying about your true feelings, and you're no longer okay with people lying to you. Because you can't make compromises with these people. You can't make compromises with postmodernists, really. And I should do a whole video about this, but I'll try to briefly explain the concept. Postmodernists are people that they use the reverse of rational thinking in order to push their personal agenda. Because the kind of the mentality of the postmodernists is that there's no truth in the world. There's only power or some crap, basically. And therefore, they are constantly going through life trying to make everybody around them jump through various hoops and make these people make tiny, tiny little compromises so that the postmodernists can slowly erode every power structure that's around them. So first they're telling you that, they're trying to explain to you that it's way, way, way worse when a white person is racist to a black person than when a black person is racist to a white person. And you're thinking to yourself, okay, that's kind of true, I suppose. Yeah, it'd probably be worse if a black person is suffering from discrimination from the majority group. That's probably true. I can swallow that. Now, granted, I used to think it's bad in either direction, so I don't know why I had to talk about that. Like, I don't know why I had to be put in the position where I'm thinking about which type of racism is worse. Why do I even have to make that choice? But okay, I can kind of grant you that it's probably worse for a majority group to be vehemently racist towards somebody in the minority, because I guess that sort of makes sense. Why not? No. But then next they try to say, so therefore a black person cannot be racist against white people. And that's where I was, I'm like, okay, no, screw you. I'm not going to talk to you anymore. You people are awful. I don't take anything that you have to say serious because you're trying to redefine words. But apparently a lot of people work on that. They made the first compromise. They were willing to say, oh, it's worse when a white person is racist to a black person, even though I think it's ultimately both of these things are bad things, and we shouldn't have had to really make that compromise. But we did. And then some people make the compromise. Okay, so white people can be racist, but black people can't be racist. Okay, so we've made that compromise. Well, they will take it a step further. I've seen it where people have said that white people cannot experience discrimination. I've seen people literally say, when the autistic or special needs, whatever that guy was who got tortured by the people who chanted F white people, F Donald Trump on camera on Facebook Live. They were trying to say that wasn't racist and that it was a hate crime only because he was autistic or whatever. I've seen people literally say that type of thing. So they take it quite a lot further. And, you have to think, it's like, oh, okay, are they using this mechanism of like subjective reality as just sort of weird stepping stones of getting power? Like, does that mean that there's just black people out there who have decided that they think that they can, play this little postmodern game of redefining words and redefining power dynamics in order to achieve some sort of black supremacy? Is that, because that is what looks to be their plan. And I want to believe it's not going to work in any specific instance. Like feminists are definitely female supremacists, and there's definitely black supremacists out there. And I don't think that any of them are really going to win in the long run. Like, I don't think any of them are going to install the feminist, communist, utopian dictatorship that they sort of want to exist in. But what they have succeeded in is training a massive amount of people, millennials and some people who are older and some people who are younger, into following and being okay with this postmodern playbook of redefining terms, redefining power dynamics, to use to their advantage. People legitimately think that this type of behavior of lying in order to make compromises with people, like if you get someone to compromise about one dishonest thing, you can get them to compromise about an even bigger dishonest thing, and slowly worm your way around their sanity and gaslight them into submission. That's sort of what these people have been doing. And they've trained a bunch of people not necessarily to want to give up, all of their agency, but they've certainly trained them into believing that that type of communication style is okay and that it's acceptable and that you can just lie to people, and so all sorts of people do it in their daily lives. Like, all sorts of people are just lying all the time. They're just saying things that we all know it's not true. Everybody who looked at that stupid thread on Facebook can tell that guy was trying to insult me when he said, "Who hurt you?" And then when he tries to say, "No offense, I wasn't trying to insult you. I apologize if I hurt your feelings." And it's like, don't lie to me. Just admit that you tried to insult me and move on. And then he freaks out and starts swearing at me and, calls me a troll and stuff. And it's like, okay, see, you just proved that I was right. You just proved everything that I thought about you, everything that I suspected about you. You proved that. And that's the problem with this postmodernist way of thinking and approaching conversations where it's okay for people to lie. Rational people that are grounded in reality, people who are pragmatists, people who believe that reality is what exists, whether you choose to believe in it or not. The thing that everybody kind of knows in the back of their head. Generally, these people try not to lie, and they are more successful if they don't lie in the real world. And I've noticed that all through my life. I've noticed that I've been happier and gotten the success and, when I've worked hard and been honest, I've gotten the things that I have most wanted by being that way. And I liken it to a businessman. A businessman generally knows that he or she, a business person, generally knows that they're going to be most successful in business if they are very, very honest. Because if they get caught lying about stuff, like if they exaggerate the cost of, if they just completely lie about their product or something like that, it's not generally going to fly. But they will lie about one thing, which is their initial asking price. They lie about negotiations because they expect the other person to kind of haggle a little bit. But that is a pragmatic thing that business people use. And because they know that the other person is going to try to do that. But other than that, that's the only compromise that business people make. And I've known a lot of high-powered business people. My cousin was actually quite high-powered as a business person. I don't want to even say what his position was when I last hung out with him, but the thing about them is that it's a very no BS type of culture, and they don't want to do business with people who are asking them to make subtle compromises. They want the truth. They want to know the truth about their product, the product that they are buying, the product that they might be representing, the product that they might be shipping, whatever it is. They just want to know the facts. And then the only thing that is up for any negotiation is how much. How much does it cost for me to do business with you? That's the only thing that's up for compromising. Well, with these postmodernists and gay, people that are church ladies, the entire world is this weird hodgepodge of, believe what you want and make weird compromises all the time with people. And I just think that everybody would be a lot happier if they separated. And I just hope that people know that more and more people, like gay guys, are separating. Like I'm getting together a Gig Towel playlist. So far I just have me and Our Cat's Gays video hosted on it. But Feral Cat's going to do one very soon, and Space Pan's going to do one, and we're going to have more, so that you guys know that there's people out there who are sane and who aren't going to force you to just lie about everything and be poor little babies who are terrified that the music you listen to is actually made by people who would want you to be shot. It's not how the world really is. And anybody who wants you to think that is a bad person. Okay.